tonight.
No worries. Actually, yeah, I missed the session at 6 because I also had a talk today with MIT.
Hi, Paridhi, you are on mute. You need to unmute yourself. I know the interface is, No, we are not. We are still not able to listen you, Paridhi. Your mic is unmute, but still you're not audible. सर अभी थोड़ा टेक्निकल इश्यूज चल रहा है परिधि के माइक काम नहीं कर रहा है सो
Okay.
Yeah. You're audible now.
Hi.
Yeah.
How are you?
Hello. Good morning. Good evening, everyone, or rather, good night.
Good morning, Paridhi.
Good. Yes, it's a very good morning. Let me try sharing.
So, Paridhi, I am right now in Lucknow. You can see outside something for you to.
Hi, Lucknow.
Okay, let me just put the camera there. Right. These are the new roads of Lucknow.
Yeah, I don't know when I'll be there next.
When did you come here?
Last year around September. Yeah, so almost a year. Yeah, almost a year now. Okay.
Actually, I'm returning from some Kushinagar. So,
Okay, let me see. Can you guys see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm ready when everyone is.
all right. Formally welcome you for this talk.
Yeah.
And these are, as you know, students from the first year MDES and PhD students who are both in humanities as well as in design program. We also had till last week, we had students from management also. We have a program called VLM, Visionary Leaders for Futuristic Manufacturing. So there is a design course for them. So these students were also there, but they have now their term is completed, so they left. But we still have these two batches. And since we had this long discussion earlier about the purpose of this, I'm not really getting into it again. So I again take this opportunity to formally welcome you and start the presentation.
Thank you, Satiki sir. Thank you, Mrityunjay, for inviting me here. Hi, everyone. I'm Paridhi. I'm 2003-2005 batch, the second batch of DP, and I'm really excited to be here and share my journey with you. So let me get started. So I chose this topic called multifaceted designer. I'll get into that a little bit more. But currently, I'm a design lead in Google Cloud Platform in Seattle, based in Seattle right now. So in terms of my journey, let's see. I started with architecture. I was an architecture student before I came to design. And within design, I was exploring a lot around visual design. That was where I started with. And in the whole process of that, I was actually working on a small promotional film for a plastic center in Kanpur. And I remember, like, I was showing some footage to Satiki sir, and he's like, "Do you want to expand this and do something more with that?" And I'm like, "Yeah, sure. Let me try." So that's when I was like, okay. So I started going off from there and created a whole documentary around that. And maybe I was the first student to submit a documentary film as a thesis in IIT Kanpur. And I think a lot of people were surprised to see that when they got the jury invite. Did you say something, Sadhiki sir?
Travel every day for almost like 6 months. I remember it because that particular I had very closely watched it. Basically, what happened is when she went there for the first time, these students. This is a school for children who are differently able. Basically, a spastic center at Kanpur. So just a day before that, some production house, a team from Doordarshan, they had come and they had fixed a lot of bright lights and they did a lot of halla gulla, and children were really scared. So it so happened the next day Paridhi went there and Paridhi talked to Meera Naruna. Meera Naruna was the principal of that particular school, and she mentioned to her all of this that happened. So it took Paridhi almost like 1 or 2 months. Continuously, she would go every day and she would give the camera to the kids. The kids would actually play around with the camera. They became extremely comfortable with Paridhi as well as the camera as a tool. And it was only then the film was shot. And there were a lot of shots which were used in the film which were actually being recorded by children themselves. So that film actually got an award in, I think, Week Film Fest, if I am not wrong, Paridhi.
Yeah, I presented, didn't get the award, but yes, I was one of the what do you call it, participants in
Right,
the competition. Yes.
right. Okay, chalo,
Yeah,
good.
thank you. Yeah, that was my foray into this one, and then I did internship also in one of the advertising agencies in Bangalore. And then at the end of the semester, it was like, okay, what next? And everyone was kind of going into interaction design. I'm like, okay, this is something I want to explore. I got into that, and I wouldn't say I'm stuck, but I'm hanging in there right now. So that's pretty much where I am. I think I'm still learning. It's not over. The journey is still on. In terms of where I have been, I'm from Lucknow, as Satish mentioned, was in Kanpur, and then mostly in Bangalore, Hyderabad, Coimbatore, and now in Seattle. So moving on to professional journey, I joined, my first company was Cordis, which is now called OpenText. It's got acquired. And that they were doing this whole business application platform. And that was my first introduction to this enterprise world and application building and the usability, like a lot of those things. Actually, my first title was usability engineer, because before that they were designers, but that company had mostly engineers. So they were like, okay, designer. That word was not that common. So that was my title. So it changed over the year. And this is a company, though it was a small company, but they were a little ahead in terms of creating application platform. So you are creating application on top of that. And that gave a little bit more insight into how things are built, how these different things come together. Because so far we were, as a designer, we were working on our own thing. We were more of a creatives, but now it's like, okay, we have to create something and get it implemented as well. So that's how, that was my good amount of understanding and learning came from this company. And then I moved to Imaginia, which is based in Hyderabad and Chennai. They were mostly a product service company. So they used to create products for other companies, which helped me understand the difference between a consumer app and an enterprise app, how they are perceived, how they are used, and what are the difficulties and different aspects of it. And definitely on the service design side as well, because we were doing the whole product design for the company. So it was end-to-end journey for them. So understanding what is their need to finally getting it to market. And then within a short amount of time, I moved to Microsoft, where again, I was now completely into enterprise world, which was CRM, customer relationship management. And the platform that I was working on was more of a XRM, which is anything relationship management. So it was more like sales and service applications and things like that. So there I grew from just being working on one aspect of an application to actually building the platform itself, and then finally looking at the administration of it as well. So it was a whole growth across that one product. And that, of course, I learned a lot about system design, design management, because I moved to a management role as well, accessibility, which was something I had in back of my mind, but never actively worked on it. So this was where I actually gotten into it, and understanding more of customer journey across application. Because when we talk about customer journeys or user journeys, we are talking in terms of one particular product. But because it was in a platform and an enterprise world, we were looking into cross application journeys, that, okay, what happens if user starts in one application and ends into another application? So that was interesting. And now, last year around the same time, I joined Google, and I'm part of now infrastructure as a service team, which is compute, to be precise. And here, it's again, my journey is continuing, and I'm learning more about inclusive design, data-driven design, and how to measure your impact, because it's not only about people like your product or not, how much impact you have made on business and maybe on a product. And then, of course, on a design strategy, how design becomes your key pillar to move things around. It's not something which is an afterthought. It is something which is moving things around. So that's pretty much my professional journey. I'll move on to the topic. So multifaceted, meaning having multiple facets. So usually when you talk about designers, these are the couple of things which comes to mind, like they are creative, problem solver, keen observer, communicator, empathetic. But if you look a little deeper, or in fact, at least in my so far journey of 15 years, these are the things which I can relate to, or maybe I have developed, or I have seen them helping me out. So a lot of these things, and you all will see, you will relate to some of them, or you will start looking for them as you move in your professional journey. So today I'm going to talk about 4 of these things which helped me shape my career or shape me as a designer. So first one is storyteller. This is close to my heart because, as I mentioned earlier, that I wanted to actually get into filmmaking, and slowly I changed gears and moved to interaction design. So that was still very close to my heart. And this quote is very interesting and very relevant to us, that facts, opinion, and value statements push people apart. Stories bring people together. The reason being, when you talk about facts, opinion, and value system, everyone has their own version of it. Whereas when a story comes, you are actually listening to someone else or something, and you're trying to relate to it. So it changes the game altogether. So that's why storytelling is very important. Now, a little bit more about why it is important. It helps you understand the problem space. It's not about this is the problem, like, okay, this is the problem, what happens around it? Because that's how you, the term in Hindi is like bhumika banna. So you basically create something around it to explain it. So you understand a problem space better. It brings a solution to life because you are talking in terms of as if it happened before it happened. It's definitely an effective communication tool because all of us have heard stories growing up. So we can relate to it. It combines multiple aspects of anything. In particular design, you are talking about persona, you're talking about behavior, solutions, problem. So it's putting them all together. And then, of course, your conceptual ideas are being now more tangible. And lastly, and most importantly, it helps you identify those invisible problems or solutions which you haven't thought about while you are creating a solution. But as soon as you start putting the story together, you start thinking about it. And I'll talk about that in a while. So in terms of tool, and my presentation today is going to be like, I'll talk about something and give you an example, and then maybe something which I can relate to. So we can have more questions at the end of the day, end of the talk day for you, of course. So the first one, the tool which is most people are aware of, is a 3-act structure from Aristotle, which is you have a setup, you have a confrontation, and resolution. And it is not the only tool for storytelling. There are multiple, but I chose this one because it's simple to understand. So within setup, something happens, and there's an incident which triggers something, and then you have a plot point. And that plot point takes a protagonist story to the next level, where the midpoint, everything is like, okay, things are going. And then at some point, maybe a realization, something happens, and then another plot point happen where they have to resolve it. And then they get into the climax. Now, looking into this from a UX point of view, you can add your own plot points from a UX point of view in terms of triggers, barriers, system events, and delights. So to give an example, a user is trying to book a vacation home, or not trying to, like that's something you are thinking about. But as a storyteller, you have to think about, okay, what is that thing which will happen in their life, which will ask them to, okay, I have to go somewhere. So it could be something like they got leave, or they are stressed in their work or something. So something happened, that incident happens that makes them think about it. The plot point can be they get an email or a marketing email which says that there is a cabin home available in forest. So do you want to go? So that could be a trigger for them to, that looks good, let me go and try it out. So they'll start exploring it. And at the midpoint, they might decide, yeah, this seems like a good idea. Let me go and think about, actually look for it. And the plot point 2 would be somewhere where they're like, okay, let me log into this app and find it out. Now the story doesn't end there, because now they have to go from booking or making that to actually finishing their vacation. So it's not over yet by that time. You have to also think about what happens after it. So it's like, what kind of feedback user want? What is and I'm talking like in terms of Airbnb, for example. What is the relationship between the host and the guest once they leave? What kind of what kind of communication tools they need? So that's how you can stitch around these things. Now, a lot of people, if you're now in absence of something like this, you might have thought about that, okay, there will be a website, user will do that, they will book, they are done. But when you start telling about the story, you also think about what happens afterwards. And that's where it's like ratings and communications and how people will exchange keys, things like that will start popping up. And those are the aspects we are talking about when we say that unidentified problem space or solution areas. Moving on to the next one, this is also interesting tool. This is part of Pixar storytelling lessons. One of the designer, animator, she put together like 22 lessons she learned while she was in Pixar. And one of them was this story rule. Once upon a time, there was, every day, one day, because of that, something happens, because of that, something else happened, until finally, and that's the end of the story. But now putting a UX flavor to it, and it's like once upon a time there was a description of user, because that's the most important thing for us as experience designers. And then they wanted a particular goal, and then every day that's their backstory. And one day they realize something, that's a need you are trying to understand, and what they think about it, what are their what's going on in their mind, what kind of barriers they have. And then they, again, what they did and thought, repeatedly you look into that until finally the actions they take and how that made them feel. Now, if you look at the structure, there are a couple of things which we'll call out, like user, goal, emotions, what actions they did, and the barriers. So if you start putting your solutions or sub-solutions into this kind of structure, you will start looking into that more often, rather than only thinking about a solution and a problem and maybe user. So that's another tool I kind of use a lot. Now, we talked about emotions a bit, which is, again, another aspect, because it's an experience. Experience is basically your emotions. And there are 4 categories we are looking into it today: unhappy, happy, neutral, reflective. Now, why it is important to understand, like, you cannot have like user using your product and they are always super happy. No, that is not going to happen. There are always ups and downs. So in terms of unhappy, like having unclear CTAs, which is call to actions, or error message, I'm trying to do something and an error comes. Filling out long forms. I just want to get this thing done and you have asked me like 20 fields to fill. No, I'm not happy about it. Wrong use of language. I understand something very differently, and you're calling it something else. And I'm like, what is this? Similarly, when you go to Happy, it could be it's a one-click onboarding. I just wanted to join something and I click and I'm here. Or I just completed my task simply. It was to submit a form or submit my details to get a book order. So I just submitted, done. Unboxing experiences. You get a delivery, the way it is packaged, when you open it up, how you feel about it. Um, then the lights. Now, taking forward that unboxing experience, if you remember, like a few years back, when you get a mobile phone, you will get it, then you have to put it on a charge. It will charge for a few hours, and then you can go and play with it. Not anymore. You open your box, it's pre-charged, so you can immediately get in onto it. You can exactly, so the experience continues. And if you think about it, it's not something which is more of a technical thing. It was more about someone thought about that experience, that there's a breakage in the experience when someone opens a box, get their phone, and then they have to wait to get it working. So those kind of things will help you with emotions and with storytelling. Those are the things which it will reveal itself to you. Coming to neutral, these are interesting areas, because when you are looking into your current product, these are things which user expects to happen. I want to search for something, and that's it. I expect it to give me results and it will come. That's it. So there is no happiness, it's neutral. But can you add some delights over there? So if I'm searching for, let's say, uh, time zone, and I get the result, but if I understand that, okay, what is my time zone, and I get that, that's a delight, because I don't have to now type in like which to which time zone. At least they know my time zone, so they know what is there. So small thing, what can we add a little bit more onto that? And then finally comes the reflective part, which is more around when user has to think before making some kind of decision. So permissions, payments, and canceling a service, commenting on something because now it is going to live there forever. So those are the reflective emotions. So yeah, like these are three aspects of storytelling which helped me, and wanted to share with you. Example I'll give you was recently I have this situation where a requirement came to me that there's an error message which is not very clear to customer. Can we change the error message? That was a simple ask. But when I started looking into it, that why this is happening, how this is happening, I started to put together as like, okay, this happened before, after, during. And then we realized, no, the problem is a little bit more than that. And now it is actually becoming, so the whole perspective has changed from making the error message better to solving a bigger problem. So because I was able to put it together and for everyone to see that, there's a lot more happening and there are a lot of possibilities, opportunities here. Can we do something? And that's how the discussion started, and it went into a bigger project. So that's one simple example. I won't be sharing a lot of screens, so don't be disappointed, but I'll be sharing stories, which I like. Moving on to the next one, system thinker. Again, coming from architect, it is architecture. This is a good reference for me. Each pattern describes a problem that occurs over and over again in our environment, and then describes the core of the solution to the problem. Now, there are a couple of words here which I think we should think more often about. Is something which happens again and again in an environment, and it's a core of a solution. Like these are three things which hits me. And why? Let's look into that. When we think about system, it becomes very important because it's the whole, and then there are parts which makes a system. So it makes you think across. Cause and effect. Because it's a system, if one thing changes, it can impact something else. So how are you going to deal with that? Elements within the system have shared goals. It may not be same, but they have shared goals. Like if one thing is achieved, the other thing will be achieved simultaneously. Then recognition versus recall. When you are in an ecosystem, you don't have to recall every time that what it does. If you see something like a chair, you know that you can sit on that. So it doesn't have to, like, you have to recognize, okay, what is this now? So if it is have 4 legs and some sort of platform, you can sit on that. Not everything, but most of it. And definitely, like, everything is interconnected in a system. And the lastly, which kind of is very important when you are thinking about system design or any system is having consistency. It could be patterns, labels, roles of things which are happening over there. So diving a little bit deeper into that, a foundation of a system. And if I jump too soon into this system, we are talking about when you're creating like bigger, larger products, you need to have something underneath. You cannot just keep reinventing the wheel. So that's why the system is important. So if I miss that, the context. So coming back to the foundation of system, you need to have design principle to start with. It cannot be like, it would be a clean design, it will be a beautiful design. No, that cannot be your principle. It has to be something a little bit more objective, more actionable, like have clear goals of each element. So user can do it quickly and simply. So those kind of relations are required. Now, they need to be practical, actionable. They need to present a point of view. So anytime you design something, that's your anchor. You can go back and say, what I'm designing, does it align with my principle or not? And then memorable, because again, system, a lot of people are working on the same system, so they should be able to it is memorable, so everyone knows about it. The second part of it, of course, the key part is the functional patterns. So when you're designing a system, it has a certain patterns which are repeating across. So for example, if you're creating a cooking or recipe website, your recipe card becomes your functional pattern, because everyone is going to refer to that. And that is going to be your tangible building block. That is going to map behaviors, because now the customer can come, a user who is coming to your website to look for a recipe, their behavior is, okay, here is the time, how much time it is going to cook, here are the ingredients it has. Now, because it's a pattern, they know where to look for. So if I'm looking for, these are the ingredients I have at home, I know where to look for. Or if I only have 10 minutes to cook, I know where to look for. So those kind of things are going to make a difference when you create those patterns. A repetitive pattern, like pattern is because it's repetitive. And then perceptual patterns. This is your brand. When you click on the like button on Twitter, that was their brand. They created it. Everyone associated with it. It gave a feeling that, oh, this is Twitter. So how you create your brand, your style, visual design, that's where people will know anywhere they use that this is this product. It connects the whole system, because that's how we perceive from a button to a typography, whatever is there, they pull it all together. And it brings the consistency to your system. Then shared language. This is very important, because we are all, as I said earlier, on a system, multiple people are working on together. So you need to have a shared language. So for example, if I'm calling something a blue button, you should understand it's a blue button. You should not think about it's a light blue button, or you're talking about a dark blue button, or it's a smaller button, it's a bigger button. So maybe it's a primary button, and everyone understand what I'm referring to. Funny story is, as designer, we are giving, we pick the hex code of the blue and gave the put in our mocks, gave it to the engineers. But for some reason or another, they went and used picker to pick it. Now, in our mind, we have defined a system, so we know that, okay, this is blue, and sometimes we may have missed it. But they were using normal picker. They might pick a pixel which is not the perfect color. And at some point, we realized that all our blues are different colors. And it came up when we were doing the accessibility contrast testing, where just by few hues, it was actually failing. And like, it's the same blue, why it is failing? So those kind of things can happen. So it's a consistency. Everyone is talking the same language. It's very important. So moving on, here is an example. And before that, I'm sorry about going too fast, because I think I have a lot of content to go through. So we can have questions later, and I can come back to some of these slides later. Setting up guidelines and foundation, you start with that. You start to have an inventory of what you already have in your product, and you start looking into each of one of them. And then definitely the major, most important pieces, you have to create, document, keep evolving those patterns, because it will not going to stay always. It will going to change. And here's an example of like one of the products I was working on, how we started and where we ended up. So when we started, we wanted to create a card component, and this was a bare bones of that card component. What it means, different, like what is the context, what are the different actions we want to have, what are the information we want to have. So keeping it at a very high level yet relatable. And then when we finally, what was created eventually was a set of things. So it can be a single card, it can be a group card. That single card can have some kind of notification. I don't have an example, but there were few others where it was more about people connections, and here you just have people card. So it's just evolution of the same thing. It's a synthesis of the multiple patterns coming together and create another set of things. But there is a source of truth. Everyone relates, goes back to the source of truth, and then they evolve on top of it. This is in the same exercise, just to give an example of how like you have to create guidelines, like what is a layout grid looks like, what is the grid size, what are the fonts we are using, what is the color palette we are going to use, so that everyone is on the same page. And then principles. This is like this is an enterprise product, and we wanted to make it available for on mobile and people with different requirements. So you have to make it touch first, it's adaptive, it's responsive, like those kind of things became very important. So anytime someone was creating a new pattern, they need to think about these things as well. Like every time, like, oh, I created this new thing, how it will work in this bigger resolution, or how it will work in a smaller resolution. That used to be the first question they will be asked. And then here's an example of like pattern inventory. You will have basics like buttons and links and things like that, but then you will evolve, like put them together to create a little bit more complex and more composite kind of patterns. So moving on, the third one is about collaboration as a collaborator. This is very important. So let's look at this code. When at a crossroad, a team can choose to either amplify their chances of success by traveling a path together, or amplify their risk of failure by choosing to go it alone. That's what happens if you're not collaborating. So you can maybe cross a road, but not, there's a high risk you might fail. So looking into this collaboration aspect, and this is very important when you get into professional life, because as a student, you are mostly focused on what you are working on. You are collaborating with your fellow designers when you have team projects. But when you go outside, you're talking with people who have different backgrounds than you, who have very different understanding than you. So this is, you will see that everywhere. This is a very common overlap of different things, but viability, desirability, and feasibility. And three are depicted and represent different aspects of product design. Viability is a product management, where we are trying to understand the business value. These are product managers, analysts, marketers, who are trying to understand, okay, how the product, or there's a need of a product, and what kind of business value they will bring. Then there's a feasibility aspect, where we are trying to understand how feasible this solution or this potential solution will be. And architects, developers, system operators, they all come together to look into that. And then we have, it's us who are looking at the desirability aspect of it, user needs, user researcher, data scientists, designers, they all come together to understand that aspect of it. Now, this is good, and there's, if you see here, there's a little bit of overlap, but we have to look for more empathy and engagement and make it a little bit more by expanding our own understanding of the area. So if I'm a designer, I want to understand a user desirability or the user need. I need to understand what is the business value, how feasible it is. And similar thing goes for our engineer as well. Like when they are looking into technicalities, they cannot say that, oh, if you click, it happens. No, how it happens is also important, and they need to understand that as well. So we have to it's not getting into others' foray, it is just understanding what is happening, and that's why empathy and engagement are important here. So giving an example of a typical product process, I think irrespective of whether you're an interaction designer or you're a product designer, This is everywhere, or the designer, you get into a discovery phase, solution phase, development phase. Usually in discovery phase, it's you and the program managers who work together to understand the context, what is happening, who are the users, what kind of journey we are looking into. And once they come to some part of it that, yeah, this makes sense, let's explore more. And that's when you get into the solution mode, where you pull in other people from technical backgrounds as well, that and let's ideate together, have brainstorm sessions, have ideation workshops, and look into that various aspects. You run those prototypes with customers and see where the barriers are coming, what needs to be solved. And there are multiple iterations of this process. It can happen like one solution, they're like, no, doesn't work, let's go back. And then once you get into development, again, it's not that at the solution stage your work is done. No, you are going forward with that, because when you go to development, you are getting into the more design specifications. You have to define what needs to be built. These are technical specifications which you have to understand what they are doing. You need to, when you talk about backlog, it is such a I would say misleading term, because when you say backlog, you assume that someday it will be done, but what is happening right now, what the portion of it which is happening right now should be very important. It cannot be like a piecemeal thing where you put together. It has to be some minimal viable product. Like think about MVP, but more often or not, people like, oh, let's do this and we'll do it later. No, it breaks your experience. So you have to make sure the part which is going now versus what is coming later. As a designer, you should have a say in that, because that is going to impact the experience for the user. And then there are a lot like front-end development, back-end development, and there your role is to make sure the quality, it's not only the technical quality, the code works, but also as the experience quality, that if I click on the button, there is a proper, it has a proper feedback. And if you have asked for animation there to give a little feedback, it is there. Those kind of small things to larger things where a complete scenario is got mixed. So your role doesn't end here. So this is where you closely work with your counterparts and other functionals and make it happen together. Examples here, I would say, is more often I will be in a call with a developer to understand, okay, why something cannot be done. Because no is a very common theme when you are trying to get something done. It's like, no, this cannot be done. So the story doesn't end there. You have to understand why it cannot be done. You have to sometimes get into the back end. Sometimes it could be a CSS issue. I'm not a developer, but I know minimal about CSS, where I can say that, no, use this property and this will work. I play around with that and tell them. So, and same thing happens on the from their end, that sometimes I might miss on a design opportunity. I like, this is a good solution, and they'll come back, have you tried this, Paridhi? Maybe this might work. And like, yeah, that's a good idea. And instead of beating myself that why I haven't thought about it, because it's a collaborative space, we feel comfortable. I'm not insecure to say that, oh, why you are coming with the solution. No, I know my job and I know we are working on this together. So having that sense of security is very important when you are collaborating. So I'll move on to the next one. I'm good at time. Inclusivity. Being inclusive is very important. And this is a little hard. So much of my challenges were not because of a genetic mutation, but caused by lack of creative thinking by those in power. This is a very hard-hitting fact. This is true. We are all designers. We claim that we want to make world this a better place, but are we doing it for everyone? Maybe not. And that's why it is very important. So let's look at some data. Over 1 billion people live with some form of disability across the world. So that's not a small number. Being differently able can be permanent, temporary, or situational. So if you design for everyone, your design could help them. You're designing for everyone. Then coming back to like inclusive design is a mindset. It's not an afterthought that, oh, I made this product, now I have to make it work for this set of disability or people with this set of disability. No, you cannot do that. You have to think from the start. It means adding more opportunities from to learn from range of perspectives. There's a famous, I forgot the name of the person, but this person was traveling, his wife was deaf, so he couldn't use the telephone. And that's how the messaging got started, because that's how he could talk to his wife, not on phone, but he was like, okay, so he started, created this tool where he can send a text, and that's how text got invented, and now everyone of uses text. So it was not about like he was trying to solve one problem, but he solved for that one problem, which is helping everyone. So this is a interesting tool, a very good tool done by Microsoft inclusivity team. They have an inclusive Microsoft inclusive toolkit, and please have a go and have a look. I have added links here, and I'll share this deck if you guys need. So looking at the persona spectrum, usually you're designing for a customer, and if you're designing a product which needs both hands to be used, because either you have to hold it or you have to use maybe click some buttons. Now you might think about like, oh, maybe people with one hand might not be able to use it, but think about the other two scenarios where someone has an arm injury, or someone has a baby in their hand. How are they going to use that product? So you expand on your thinking. It's not about like one aspect of it. So you expand your persona. And so far we were talking persona more on the behavioral side, but now we are expanding in terms of the capabilities side as well. And this can go across different senses like touch, see, hear, speak. And from the same toolkit, there's an example of where you can run these exercises, and we did this within our team. So I had a intern working with me who is like really passionate about accessibility and inclusivity, and we decided to run this workshop with our program managers and developers. And it was fun exercise, because what we did, it was a normal workshop, ideation workshop. We gave a problem, everyone came up with a solution, and then we pulled out this card of, okay, what if now the person doesn't, like, so everyone has to pick one card. So can't see, can't speak, can't hear, can't touch. So every team got one of those, and now they have to rethink their solution. And it was such an interesting moment, because it was like, oh no, what just happened? Like, because it just failed. Some of the thing they thought in the solution will not work if the person cannot see. And that helped us to create that understanding, not only for designer, but in our technical developer team as well. So now they were coming back to us that, oh, what will happen if this we are not supporting touch, or we are not supporting this, or a person is traveling, so they need to use this app as well. So it's a whole, as I said earlier, it's a mindset. So the whole mindset changed where you went and thought through other things as well. Very basics to understand, especially in the web accessibility. I don't know much about in general, but in the web accessibility, we talk about 3 aspects of it when you are thinking about interactions. So there are visual interaction you have to think, which are more around color contrast, color communication, responsive design. And then physical interactions, which are more around someone using only keyboard, they are not using mouse, how the focus is on the team, so on the page. So if I'm using only my keyboard, when I click something, I should know, looking at the screen, that where the focus is. So that's the focus management. And interaction target size. Interesting story there. Back in when I was in my first job, we were making this tool. We were happy about this, and then we realized that people are struggling, and we're like, why? So our researcher went there at the customer site, and what they noticed that they were it was installed in a factory, and people who were working there, they had these huge gloves in their hand. So they were, every time they were trying to touch, they were always having these misclicks, because the target size was very small. So these are small things which you will notice. But if you are thinking about that from the start, it really helps. And similar thing is like a lot of people use screen magnifier at like 200% zoom because of their eyesight. Like a lot of people, old age people, they have to use that. So if your website or your app is not responsive, they will lose out on a lot of information. They don't know what is there. If it doesn't reflow in a good way, it is having overlap. So it's just confusing for them and not allow them to do their job. now going back to auditory interactions, that is like you have to make sure if someone is not looking at your screen, they are listening to your screen, they understand what the meaning is. So if you have a button on your page, you call it a button. So when they are listening, they are not looking, they know, okay, there's a button which is going to do this. It's not going to call that it's a button. It will say, here's a button to sign up. So they know that, okay, now they have to, however they are interacting with it, they have to click there and it will do certain job. So understanding these will help you design better. And also understanding this earlier will help you to execute your design better, because now you're speaking the same language with your engineers as well. So they know what needs to be done beforehand. And that's kind of end of it. So quickly going through what I learned so far in these many years. Never design in a solo. You can create a being on your own, but when you're designing, you need to understand, look for different perspectives. Do not be a consultant, be a partner. A lot of times when we get into these organizations, some of them have this aspect of, okay, this needs to be done. And you're like, okay, I'll get it done. No, you need to become a partner where you're like, why it needs to be done. So you start asking questions and finding answers together. Never stop learning, keep evolving. I don't know everything today. I still try to learn more and more. Understand business and understand impact. It's not about just understanding user, in which context they are coming. You have to understand that to grow. Plan for the blue sky. We love blue skies, but aim for the safe landing. So even if you are like, this is an amazing thing I'm going to do, but understand that how it is going to land. How are you going to execute on that? Being nostalgic, I'll go back to our times when we were in DB. We were asked, like, every time we create something, create a prototype, because that's where you make sure that it's not all like high level thinking. We are thinking, it's a conceptual thinking which we are bringing to life. So think about that. Never, never, never stop sketching or doodling. You will go through so many meetings painlessly if you do that. And this all is going to take some time. So don't beat yourself up as like, oh, I don't understand that. It will take some time. Last slide, what changed? This is me when I was there. I moved boxes and text around another box, and they pay me to do that. Now, if you ask me, what I do is I ask, who needs this box? Why do they need it? Will they need it tomorrow? That's how my story has changed. And that's it. Questions? Anything else? Any comments?
Thank you, Paridhi. It was a wonderful talk.
Thank you.
And yeah, you not much about the talk, but while you were presenting, I was actually observing the background. The light kept on changing, and that reminded me of Janet Leigh. You remember the film Psycho?
Yes.
When she was driving the car, the light kept on changing.
So it's the same, but I'm not psycho.
I know that.
It is student's mind, and the sky is reflecting that.
Yeah.
Thank you, Manjari.
Manjari, Paridhi, both of you, I'll give A grade for this presentation.
Thank you. I was under pressure because it's like a new assignment from you, so we have to do good.
That reminds me, actually, of course, you'll have to take up the questions, but that reminds me, I'll have to sit with this batch because they had this overdose of gyan throughout the semester from so many people, and we haven't had any examinations or anything. I need to give them grades in about 10 days. We'll have to plan out something. I think already there are some coverage questions. Yeah, Mrityunjay, take it up.
Thank you, sir. Was it too high level?
Other questions?
I don't see anything in the chat.
Good morning, ma'am.
Good morning. Don't have to call me ma'am.
Yeah, so So I have a question. Like, you were talking about the inclusive design, right? About the
Mhm.
inclusivity. So my doubt is whether inclusivity is same as universality. Whether inclusive design is same as
Mhm.
universality.
That's a very good point. Like I would say it's a different flavor of looking at it, because when you talk about universal design, it does include that. It does include a lot of other things as well, that we are talking about different um, product, different devices, not only making it work on one device, but what are the different devices you're working on, building it for everyone. So yes, it's a broader term which is being used. Inclusivity also means in different terms that you are including everyone, not we are not only talking about people with disability, you're talking about people maybe with different backgrounds, people who don't understand the same language. So if you, in your product, if you use like really high Shashi Tharoor level language, maybe not everyone will get it. So it becomes, both of them are a little broader in their own sense. So yes, they relate, I would say. Did I answer your
Yeah,
question?
thank you.
Thank you. I have a question here. How storytelling helps to generate solution, or it's just a mode of communication? I would say both. So when you are trying to come up with a solution, think about it. So usually you are looking into customer journey, which is your starting point, that okay, what happens today, how the customer is going through this thing today, and then you add a goal to that journey. And then you said, okay, if this is the goal, going through the similar journey, what are the different touch points where I have to go and do something else? Those are your plot points I was talking about. You add those and see how the journey again goes back. So yes, it can be used to create solutions as well. And as I said, that because this is a tool which will help you to define those unidentified areas, it is definitely a tool to use for solution. And mode of communication, because you're not doing it on your own, you are doing it with a team of people from different backgrounds. So you all are working on a solution via storytelling. So yeah. Any other question? I hope it was useful to you guys.
Are there other questions?
Hello, ma'am.
Hello.
Yeah, actually, my another question is like, in the industry, are there like new UX roles like coming up? Are there some roles which are being like bisected into something new? Recently,
Mm-hmm.
from previous talk that I actually heard, that there is something new that is called UX writer. So,
Mm-hmm.
is there something that is happening that we should
Yes.
join?
Yes. So, very interesting thing that when I started my career, I told you, like, I was called usability engineer, because it was this area is still growing. People are still understanding. Now people know that when you talk about interaction designer, they understand that. So as we are growing, we are understanding more and more needs for something else. So yes, UX writer is definitely, we call it content writer, UX writers. That is another one area. We have UX engineers. So we have engineers, and then we have UX engineers who help us kind of be a little bit more nearer to implementation, to understand how it will be done. Then we have prototypers who are just helping with, like, okay, let's create a prototype. Definitely visual design, graphic design, those things are already there. Research is there. Data scientists is now, earlier data scientists were more associated with technical data technical stream, but now they are coming also into design stream, where we are looking into, okay, why something happens. Let's look at the journey in terms of number of clicks and understand what kind of questions we are asking. So yes, this thing is growing like any yes, new roles are coming, and you can explore as you move forward. There are people who have changed from designer to researcher, researcher to someone else. So definitely there's a lot of scope there.
Paridhi, I'm just entering a zone where there will not be a good connectivity. Okay, so
Okay,
I'll give you a call sometime. Right? Take
sure,
care
sure, sir.
and
Thank you,
stay
sir.
blessed. Bye.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye. I have two questions here. How is the design atmosphere in Google different from that of Microsoft? I see Manjri here. Let's have a debate over here. These are two different companies. I would say I worked in a one design studio within Microsoft, so I cannot talk about all the design studios across Microsoft because there are multiple design studios, and in Google also. What the one difference which is very clear to me is here it is things are more data driven and more closer to engineering because it is data driven. So anytime you present something, people will ask questions like, "Do we have data on that? How do we know a user needs this?" So it has become more of that. It's more analytical. Even if I create my mocks and all, I actually write a design brief, like write it in terms of document to make everyone understand that what is needed. It on the whole, I wouldn't say it's very different. It is still similar, but these are two things which I noticed and kind of learning a lot more. So yes, there was before that. Yes, Google hires designers. We will soon be hiring in Bangalore, I hope. Um, how Google hires designers. Like any other companies, you will be having like few things which people look for are a few aspects as a designer. It's not about how good you are a designer, how good you are we are also looking at leadership and how you can drive things on your own. How do you understand the context of a design rather than just like, okay, this is what I'm doing. And I don't think it is only specific to Google. I think it is universal, like because especially when we look at the design world, it's still very small. So we are still moving from one to another. So I think these aspects remain same across. Any other?
So I will add these were not really coming in for placements, but we got a call in the night from placement office. So there were about 11 students who appeared for the placement.
Okay.
9 of them have already been placed, and just 2 of them maybe you still have time, almost 10 days left.
Okay, sure. Okay. Can storytelling skill be developed and how we can do this? I think this is more about like using a format. So maybe the two I showed, you can start there. Anything can be developed. Like it's not that we know everything to start with. So yes, you can start using that tool. And when we talk about storytelling, it's not about the overall big solution. You can have like those subplots. You want to create a feature, small feature of user taking a note, let's say. Take that small thing and maybe try to put it in the same aspect of, okay, what they need, what is the background and the context they are trying to create, and what will happen, what they're looking for, what kind of feedback they're looking for. So if you start putting it together, I think it can be developed. So just make it a habit and it will come. So yes, it can be. I think, yeah, we have 3 more minutes. I think it's already late for you guys, so I don't blame you.
So I think next semester when we have this course on topics in motion pictures, a lot of these issues related to storytelling will be resolved. There are, I just kind of had a look at some of these questions. So yeah, we have quite a bit of tools, quite a few tools through which you can hone up the skill, can build the skill. So before you graduate, you guys will be good storytellers. So.
Yes. I trust you, sir, on that. Because I know because of you I'm here.
Chalo then. Thank you,
Okay.
Paridhi. Thank you so much.
Thank
It
you.
was
Thank you.
wonderful
everyone.
to see both you and Manjari today.
Thank you.
Whenever you're coming to India, just please come over.
Sure,
And
I will.
yeah. Chalo, take care. Stay
Yeah,
safe, all
thank
of
you.
you. Yeah.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Okay, see you guys. Have a good night. Bye.